The wedding was resisted, yet the alien princess couldn't move when she HFY Stories, best HFY Stories. The stars shimmered like scattered diamonds across the black sky, and the Zirin capital's spires reflected their light in silver and blue. From a distance, the city looked calm, elegant, and perfect. Yet within its heart, the air was thick with tension. Princess Lyra moved through the halls of the palace, her steps soft against the polished floors. Every corner whispered the weight of expectation, reminding her that her life had already been mapped out by tradition, duty, and the unyielding hand of her family. The wedding was scheduled, set, and unavoidable, or so everyone thought. She paused at a window overlooking the central plaza. The humans had arrived just days before, and already they had drawn the attention of the entire court. Lyra had been cautious, observing them from a distance at first. There was something strange about them, something that set them apart from the dignitaries and envoys who had passed through the palace for generations. They moved with confidence, yet without arrogance. They laughed at their mistakes, fixed problems in unexpected ways, and never seemed to fear failure. Her father, King Sauron, believed humans were useful tools, clever, resourceful, and bold, yes, but tools nonetheless. He had welcomed them to show the Zirin people that even the most distant species could be persuaded to assist in Zirin progress. He had no idea that his daughter had begun to see humans in a very different light. Lyra stepped back from the window and continued down the corridor. She entered the council chamber, where the palace officials were already gathering to discuss the day's events. Servants moved silently, setting out refreshments and documents, but Lyra barely noticed them. Her mind was elsewhere, tangled in the thoughts of the humans, demonstration she had seen earlier that morning. A group of human engineers had been called to repair a failing energy conduit in the lower levels of the city. The conduit had been malfunctioning for months, and Zirin engineers had tried every conventional method to fix it, to no avail. Yet the humans approached the task differently. They inspected the machinery carefully, asked questions about parts and processes the Zirin engineers had never considered, and even suggested unconventional solutions. Within hours, they had stabilized the conduit, preventing what could have been a catastrophic failure. Lyra had watched from a balcony as a human named Captain Elias climbed onto the conduit's framework without hesitation, adjusting the mechanism with steady hands and clear instructions. There was no fear in him, only focus, determination, and a quiet confidence that seemed to radiate through the plaza. And when the machinery hummed back to life, the crowd erupted in applause. Zirin officials bowed and offered formal thanks, but Lyra noticed the genuine admiration in their expressions. They had not just witnessed a technical achievement, they had witnessed the human spirit at work. Her thoughts were interrupted by the voice of her aide, a young woman named Sauron. "Princess, the council is ready for you. They await your presence." Lyra nodded, forcing herself to move. She followed Sauron through the winding corridors, past murals depicting generations of Zirin leaders, past statues of warriors who had never failed their people. Yet even amidst these reminders of duty and tradition, Lyra's mind lingered on the humans. There was something alive about them, something unpredictable that she had never encountered among her own people. The council chamber was filled with officials, all wearing formal robes of deep blue and silver. Their eyes flicked toward Lyra as she entered, a mixture of respect and expectation in their gaze. She took her place at the head of the chamber, her posture regal but her heart restless. "Princess," her father began, his voice deep and steady, "the humans have offered their assistance in stabilizing the orbital energy relay. It is a rare opportunity to learn from another civilization. We must consider their methods and their advice carefully." Lyra nodded, but her attention was drawn to the human delegation at the far side of the room. Captain Elias stood upright, speaking quietly with an engineer, gesturing toward a holographic display of the city's energy systems. His words were precise, yet full of an ease and clarity that made complicated technology seem simple. "Father," Lyra said, her voice steady but filled with a hint of curiosity, "may I speak with them directly? There are details I wish to understand myself." King Sauron looked at her sharply, a frown forming. "That is unusual, Lyra. Protocol dictates that communication pass through your advisors. The humans are to assist us, yes, but personal engagement is unnecessary." Lyra felt a spark of defiance, small but undeniable. I wish to understand them, Father. They may teach us more than we expect. Her father's gaze softened, though only slightly. He saw the determination in her eyes, a determination that reminded him of himself at her age, yet he could not bend tradition completely. Very well, he said after a pause, but proceed with caution. Lyra left the council chamber and moved toward the human delegation, her steps quick and purposeful. Captain Elias noticed her approach and inclined his head politely. Princess Lyra, he said, his voice calm and courteous, it is an honor to meet you. The honor is mine, Lyra replied, though her mind was racing. I watched your work this morning. I want to understand how you approached the conduit repairs. Why did you succeed where our engineers failed? Elias smiled faintly. We do not rely solely on tradition or precedent, he explained. We look for what works even if it seems unusual. We make mistakes, learn from them, and keep trying. Sometimes the answer is in the problem itself. Lyra nodded slowly, absorbing his words. There was simplicity in his explanation, yet it carried a depth that resonated with her. She had grown up in a world where obedience and conformity were paramount, but here was a civilization that thrived on curiosity, courage, and adaptation. You have courage, she said quietly. Not just in your work, but in the way you face challenges. It is inspiring. Elias looked at her, surprised by the honesty in her tone. Thank you, Princess. Courage comes from necessity. When the stakes are high, we do what we must. Sometimes we fail, sometimes we succeed, but we always try. Lyra smiled faintly, feeling a strange warmth in her chest. She had expected admiration or perhaps fear from the humans. Instead, she found respect, understanding, and a quiet strength that made her pulse quicken. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of conversation, questions, and demonstrations. Lyra asked about human problem-solving, their approaches to conflict, and their perspectives on leadership. With every answer, her fascination grew. She realized that the humans' success was not just in technology or skill. It was in their ability to think beyond limitations, to challenge expectations, and to act with integrity even under pressure. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the palace in hues of gold and violet, Lyra felt a shift within herself. The wedding, which had once seemed inevitable, now felt like a chain she could not bear. Her admiration for humanity was growing into something more profound, a realization that she could not ignore her own desires in the face of duty. She retreated to her private chambers, her thoughts swirling like the stars above. The humans had shown her a glimpse of a life guided not by expectation, but by courage, ingenuity, and choice. Could she break free from the path laid out for her? Could she follow the example of these bold, extraordinary humans and chart her own destiny? Lyra looked out the window at the glittering city below, her reflection staring back at her from the glass. She felt both fear and exhilaration, a mix of dread and hope that left her rooted in place. The wedding was still planned. The council still expected obedience. But for the first time, Lyra realized she had a voice, and perhaps, for the first time, she would dare to use it. And as the first stars appeared in the evening sky, she made a quiet vow to herself. No matter the consequences, no matter the resistance, she would find a way to act, not just as a princess, but as someone who could move, who could choose, and who could embrace the courage that humans had shown her. The palace was silent, save for the distant hum of energy conduits and the soft footsteps of servants in the hall. Yet in Lyra's heart, a storm of possibilities had begun to rise, each one brighter than the last. The humans had arrived, not just in her city, but in her mind, challenging everything she had known. And for the first time in her life, Princess Lyra could not move, because she had begun to think, to feel, and to question a future that had been decided for her long before she was born. The night stretched on, and the stars continued their silent dance across the sky. Lyra remained at her window, lost in thought, knowing that the days ahead would demand more than courage. They would demand choice, action, and the kind of boldness she had never been taught. But somewhere deep inside, she felt certain that she could meet the challenge. After all, the humans had shown her what was possible, and she was no longer willing to remain still. The morning light spilled over the Zirin capital, painting the city in shades of silver and gold. Princess Lyra stood on her balcony, watching the humans move through the plaza below. Captain Elias and his team were already busy with preparations, their gestures precise and their voices calm. Today was different. Today, the humans would demonstrate their ideas for the orbital energy relay, a massive system that had long been unstable and that the Zrin engineers had struggled to control. Lyra felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. She had seen the humans' ingenuity before, but this was on a scale that could change the future of her people. If they succeeded, the Council would have no choice but to see the value of human methods, and perhaps her own ideas about freedom and choice would gain weight. But if they failed, she did not dare think of failure. Descending the stairs, she moved quietly toward the plaza, where a crowd of Zrin officials and citizens had begun to gather. The humans were already at work. Their tools were strange and unfamiliar, yet they moved with confidence. Captain Elias directed his team with quiet authority, and Lyra noticed how the humans communicated with ease, anticipating each other's actions without confusion. One of the Zrin engineers, a stern man named Varin, approached her. "Princess," he said, "are you certain it is wise to involve yourself so closely? This is a demonstration, not a matter for royalty." Lyra shook her head. "I wish to understand, Varin. I cannot simply observe from a distance. I must see how they work, how they think." Varin frowned but did not argue. He had seen her determination before and knew it was useless to resist. Instead, he stepped aside, allowing her full view of the humans' work. Captain Elias noticed her presence and offered a slight bow. "Princess Lyra," he said, "your timing is perfect. We were about to begin." Lyra nodded. "I want to learn everything I can." The humans had set up a portable display unit, projecting a three-dimensional image of the orbital relay above the plaza. It floated like a miniature galaxy, spinning slowly, each segment highlighted with pulsing lights that indicated activity and stress points. The system was complex, far more than anything Lyra had seen before, and yet she felt no fear. Instead, she felt fascination. "This relay," Captain Elias began, "has been failing for years. We've observed the patterns and the energy flows, and we believe the solution is not just in repairing the parts, but in understanding how they work together. Every system, every segment affects the others. Our goal is to balance them in a way that prevents collapse." A murmur went through the crowd. Zrin officials whispered among themselves, skeptical but intrigued. Balancing the relay had been considered nearly impossible, and yet here were humans claiming they could do it. Lyra stepped closer to the projection, pointing at a segment glowing red. "This one is the most unstable," she said. "Why does it fail?" Captain Elias smiled. "It's overcompensating for the flow from other segments. It's trying to do too much at once. If we adjust its input and redistribute the energy, it can stabilize." He gestured toward his team, and two humans moved quickly, using portable devices that projected new energy pathways into the hologram. The red segment flickered, then gradually dimmed to a steady green. The crowd gasped. Varin muttered under his breath, "Impossible. We tried that configuration years ago." Lyra ignored him, her eyes fixed on the projection. "How did you know it would work?" she asked. "We observe, we test, and we adapt," Elias replied simply. "Sometimes the answer is not in tradition, but in curiosity and experimentation." As the demonstration continued, the humans adjusted multiple segments simultaneously, each change precise and deliberate. The projection began to glow steadily, the red warnings disappearing as green signals replaced them. Lyra could feel the tension in the air, the disbelief and admiration mixing in equal measure. The humans were not only solving a problem, they were showing a new way of thinking. A small voice inside her heart whispered that this was more than technology. This was courage. This was ingenuity. This was the kind of spirit her people had forgotten in their adherence to rules and customs. Captain Elias turned to Lyra and explained one final step. "The relay must be synchronized with the city's energy core. If we do this correctly, the entire network will stabilize, and the system will be stronger than ever." Lyra watched closely as the humans connected their devices to the central core, their movements deliberate, their focus unwavering. The core pulsed, then stabilized. Lights across the city blinked in harmony, the energy flowing smoothly, no malfunctions, no danger. The plaza erupted into applause, a mixture of relief and amazement. Lyra felt a thrill she had never experienced in a council chamber or royal ceremony. This was not obedience. This was action. This was life. She turned to Captain Elias, her eyes shining. "You have done something extraordinary," she said. Elias shook his head. "We only did what had to be done. The system needed help and we helped it. That is all." Lyra smiled faintly, knowing that there was more than humility in his words. There was truth and strength, and a confidence born from experience and courage. She realized that humans were not just clever, they were alive in a way that Xirin tradition often stifled. As the crowd dispersed, Lyra lingered, reluctant to leave. She wanted to understand more, to learn more, to be part of this energy, this determination, this human spirit that seemed to pulse around her. One of the human engineers, a young woman with short hair and quick hands named Mara, approached her. "Princess, would you like to see the core up close? It's perfectly safe now." Lyra hesitated, then nodded. She followed Mara through the lower corridors of the plaza to the central hub of the relay. The room was vast, filled with humming machinery, glowing conduits, and floating holographic readouts. The air smelled faintly of ozone and energy, a scent she had never experienced in the quiet halls of the palace. "This is incredible," Lyra whispered, stepping carefully among the machines. "I have never seen anything like it," Mara smiled. "It's just energy, really. We only guide it, balance it, and keep it flowing. The rest comes from understanding and observation." Lyra nodded slowly. She watched as Mara demonstrated minor adjustments, explaining how each flow affected the rest of the system. Lyra tried to understand, asked questions, and even offered suggestions based on what she had observed. To her surprise, Mara listened carefully, considering each idea before testing it. The collaboration felt natural, easy, and exhilarating. For hours, they worked together, refining the system, observing the patterns, and celebrating small victories. Lyra felt alive in a way she never had in the palace. Here her thoughts mattered. Here action mattered. Here courage and creativity were valued above rank and tradition. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the hub, Lyra leaned against a console, breathing deeply. She realized that the humans had not only stabilized the relay, they had changed her perspective entirely. She no longer saw herself as a pawn in a political arrangement. She saw herself as someone capable of thought, choice, and action. Captain Elias approached and stood beside her, silent for a moment, watching the glowing conduits. "You understand now," he said quietly. "It is not just about fixing machines. It is about trying, learning, and daring to act when others hesitate." Lyra nodded, feeling the truth of his words in her bones. "I understand," she whispered, "and I think I want to try that in my own life, to act, to choose, to be." Elias smiled faintly, sensing her resolve. "Then you are already on the right path, Princess. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action despite fear." The day ended with a quiet sense of triumph. The humans had proven their ingenuity, their courage, and their ability to solve impossible problems. But more importantly, they had ignited a spark in Lyra, a spark that could not be ignored. The wedding, the council, the expectations, they all seemed smaller now, less binding. For the first time, she realized that she might have a choice. Walking back through the plaza, Lyra glanced at the humans. They were ordinary in appearance, yet extraordinary in spirit. She wondered how many others in her world could think as freely, act as boldly, and inspire as profoundly. Her heart swelled with a mixture of admiration, hope, and determination. That night, alone in her chambers, Lyra stared out at the stars. The city below was calm again, unaware of the storm that had begun in her mind. She knew the days ahead would be difficult, that tradition and duty would challenge her, and that the council would expect obedience. Yet she felt ready. The humans had shown her that even the impossible could be overcome with courage, creativity, and determination. And as she lay down to rest, Lyra whispered quietly to herself, "I will not be still. I will act. I will choose. I will be like them in my own way." The stars twinkled above, silent witnesses to a princess awakening to the possibilities of freedom, courage, and humanity itself. The day began with a tense quiet in the Xirin capital. Princess Lyra woke to the soft hum of the city below, the energy relay shining faintly from the orbital hub. It had been a night of restless thought. The human's demonstration had changed everything in her mind. She could not ignore it. She could not ignore the courage, ingenuity, and freedom that the humans had shown her. And yet, the path ahead was uncertain. The council still expected obedience, and the wedding was approaching. Lyra dressed in a simple robe, her hair braided neatly, and left her chambers with a purposeful step. She needed to understand more, to be part of the energy that humans carried, and to see if her own courage could match theirs. As she moved through the palace halls, servants and guards nodded politely, but no one stopped her. Perhaps they sensed the determination in her stride, or perhaps they assumed she was simply going about her royal duties. In the plaza, Captain Elias and his team were already busy preparing a second demonstration. This time, they were working not just with machinery, but with the council members themselves. Lyra approached quietly, listening as Elias explained the principles behind the energy relay, using words and gestures that even the most skeptical officials could understand. One of the council members, a tall, stern figure named Varin, frowned. "Captain, this is unnecessary. We have years of experience. The system has always functioned within expected limits." Elias shook his head. "It is not enough to follow limits, counselor. The system is complex. Understanding its full potential requires observation, adaptation, and sometimes unconventional solutions. Tradition alone cannot guarantee stability." Lyra felt a thrill at his words. They spoke exactly what she had been thinking for months, what her heart had been whispering since the humans arrived. The council members hesitated, exchanging uncertain glances. Then a younger official stepped forward, curiosity written across his face. "Show us, Captain. Show us how humans approach this problem differently." Elias nodded and gestured toward the holographic projection above the plaza. The floating three-dimensional model of the relay spun slowly, its segments pulsing with light. Lyra joined the crowd, her eyes fixed on the glowing display. She noticed how the humans worked together, communicating silently at times, correcting each other gently, and testing ideas with precision and courage. Every movement had purpose, and every decision was informed by experience and creativity. "This segment is overloading," Mara said, pointing at a section glowing red. "It is compensating for another segment downstream. If we adjust the input and redistribute the energy flow, it will stabilize." The council members murmured in disbelief. "We tried that," Varin said sharply. "It will not work. The system is too sensitive." Lyra stepped forward. "Let them try," she said, her voice calm but firm. "We have seen what they can do. Do not dismiss their methods before they even attempt them." Elias glanced at her, a faint smile crossing his face. "Thank you, Princess. We will proceed carefully." The humans moved quickly, adjusting energy pathways, testing minor changes, and observing the results. Slowly, the red segment faded to green, and other areas began to stabilize. The council members watched, some with admiration, some with skepticism, but all with growing attention. "It is working," Lyra whispered to herself. She felt a thrill of excitement, not just because the system was stabilizing, but because she had a voice now. She had intervened, spoken up, and helped others see the value of courage, action, and new ideas. Varin's frown deepened. "This cannot be mere chance. Humans cannot understand our technology as we do." Elias shook his head gently. "Understanding comes not from memory or tradition, counselor, but from observation, analysis, and the willingness to adapt. We do not claim to know everything, but we know how to solve problems." The relay stabilized completely, a steady glow spreading through the holographic model. The plaza erupted into applause, citizens and officials alike marveling at the human ingenuity that had saved them from potential disaster. Lyra felt her heart lift with pride and wonder. These humans were extraordinary yet humble, brave yet patient. They inspired not just admiration but hope. As the crowd dispersed, Lyra found herself walking alongside Captain Elias. "I cannot believe what I have seen," she admitted softly. "Your courage, your clarity, it is unlike anything in our court." Elias looked at her with quiet respect. "It is not courage alone, it is action, observing, learning, and daring to try when others hesitate. That is what makes the difference." Lyra nodded, feeling the truth in his words. I wish I could do that too, to act, to choose, to think freely." "You can," Elias said simply. "Courage is not the absence of fear, it is action despite fear. You already have it, you just need to trust yourself." Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden commotion near the edge of the plaza. A group of conservative Zrin officials and guards approached, their faces tense. They had watched the humans' demonstration and were not pleased. "Princess Lyra," one of them demanded, "you are encouraging outsiders to influence our people. This is dangerous. You must remember your duty, your wedding, your obligations. Everything depends on your obedience." Lyra's pulse quickened, but she did not falter. She had expected this challenge, and she had made her choice. "My duty," she said firmly, "is to my people, and my people deserve solutions, understanding, and safety. The humans have shown a way forward. I cannot ignore it. The officials exchanged glances, uncertainty and anger mixed on their faces. One of them stepped closer, voice sharp. You risk everything by supporting them. Do you not understand the consequences? Lyra met his gaze steadily. I understand perfectly. But I will not remain silent or passive when action is needed. I will not obey blindly when my people's future is at stake. The tension was palpable. For a moment, no one moved. Then, to Lyra's surprise, a young council member spoke up. Princess is right, he said quietly but firmly. We have witnessed their methods. We have seen results. Perhaps it is time to consider new approaches, even if they challenge tradition. The older officials scowled, but their resistance faltered. Lyra felt a spark of hope. Perhaps change was possible. Perhaps courage, clarity, and action could guide her people into a better future. Later, in a private chamber, Lyra met with the humans again. They challenged me, she admitted, her voice quiet but resolute. They demanded obedience, tradition, and silence, but I could not stand aside. I had to speak. Elias nodded. Speaking is the first step. Acting comes next. You have taken the first step, Princess. Do not be afraid of the ones who resist. Courage spreads and others will follow when they see truth. Myra placed a hand gently on Lyra's shoulder. You are stronger than you realize. We only show what we know. The rest comes from the courage to act, and you have it. Lyra smiled faintly, feeling a warmth of determination. Then I must continue. I cannot stop here. I must find a way to protect my people, to challenge the council when necessary, and to make my own choices. The humans nodded, understanding the weight of her words. They had not come to rule, to dominate, or to force change. They had come to show possibility, to inspire courage, and to help others see what could be achieved through ingenuity and action. As night fell, Lyra returned to her chambers, the stars above twinkling with quiet encouragement. She thought of the energy relay, now stable and thriving under human guidance. She thought of the courage she had found within herself, the voice she had raised in the face of opposition. And she thought of the days to come, knowing that the path forward would be difficult, but also filled with opportunity. The wedding loomed in the distance, a symbol of tradition and expectation. But Lyra felt no fear, only resolve. She had seen what humans could achieve, and she had glimpsed her own potential. She would not be bound by convention. She would act, she would choose, and she would follow the courage that had been ignited within her heart. And as the city slept, the glow of the orbital relay casting faint light across the palace, Lyra closed her eyes and whispered to herself, I will not be still. I will act. I will choose, and I will inspire others to do the same. The stars twinkled silently above, witnesses to a princess who was awakening to courage, choice, and the limitless possibilities that lay beyond fear. Humanity had shown her the way, and she would no longer ignore the morning sun rose slowly over the Zirin capital, casting long shadows across the plaza. The city seemed calm, but beneath its polished surface, tension simmered. Princess Lyra moved through the corridors of the palace, her heart steady but her mind alert. Today was the day of the council vote, the council that would decide the future of her people, the humans, and herself. The wedding, which had long been expected to secure political alliances, now hung in uncertainty. Lyra knew that what happened today could change everything. The council chamber was filled with Zirin officials, their robes deep blue and silver, symbols of centuries of tradition. Some faces were stern and unyielding, others nervous, and a few curious. Lyra entered with confidence, her presence commanding attention. She had grown in courage over the past days, inspired by the humans' ingenuity and the possibilities they represented. She was no longer the silent princess expected to obey without question. She had a voice, and she would use it. Captain Elias and his team stood near the edge of the chamber, observing quietly. Lyra gave them a brief nod, acknowledging their support without speaking. She knew that today was her moment to act, not theirs. The humans had shown what was possible. It was now her responsibility to guide her people to embrace it. King Sorin rose from his seat, his expression grave. Council members, he began, we are gathered to decide the path forward for our people. The humans have demonstrated extraordinary skill and ingenuity in stabilizing the orbital energy relay. However, tradition and duty remain important. We must weigh innovation against the expectations of our civilization. A murmur ran through the council chamber. Lyra took a deep breath, her mind recalling every moment she had spent with the humans, their calm confidence, their ability to act decisively, and their courage in the face of the unknown. She stepped forward. "I speak not just as a princess," she said clearly, "but as someone who cares for the future of our people. We have witnessed what the humans can do. Their courage, creativity, and ingenuity are not threats. They are examples of what is possible when we think, act, and choose wisely. We have a chance to embrace change, to protect our people, and to secure a future of strength and freedom. I will not be silent. I will not obey blindly. I ask you to consider what is best for our civilization, not merely what has always been done." The room fell silent. Some council members looked shocked. Others whispered among themselves. Lyra's words were bold, challenging centuries of tradition. But there was truth in them, and slowly the room began to stir with curiosity and doubt. Varin, the stern counselor, stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Princess Lyra, you speak of courage and change, yet the path you suggest defies our laws and customs. Do you not fear the consequences? The wedding was meant to secure alliances, maintain stability, and honor our traditions. How can you place the desires of a few outsiders above the needs of our people?" Lyra met his gaze steadily. "I do not place outsiders above our people," she said firmly. "I place courage, ingenuity, and action above blind obedience. The humans have shown that even the impossible can be achieved when we act with clarity and determination. I have seen it. I have felt it. And I believe our people deserve the same chance to grow, to learn, and to thrive, not merely to follow without thought." A younger council member who had watched the humans' demonstration closely spoke next. "The princess is right," he said. "We have seen their methods. The relay is stable. Our people are safe. Perhaps it is time to consider new approaches, even if it challenges tradition." The older counselors bristled, but the younger voices began to gather strength. Whispers spread, and murmurs of agreement grew louder. Lyra felt a surge of hope. The tide was turning, and the courage that the humans had shown was now inspiring her people to reconsider their choices. Captain Elias stepped forward, addressing the council with calm authority. "Council members, we are not here to overthrow tradition or command your civilization. We are here to show that courage, ingenuity, and the willingness to act can create solutions when others fail. You have the power to choose, just as Princess Lyra has chosen to speak truthfully today. The future is yours to shape." The council members listened intently, the words resonating with those who had begun to question long-held assumptions. Lyra felt a wave of gratitude for the humans, who had not only demonstrated skill but had inspired bravery in her heart and the hearts of others. King Sorin cleared his throat, his expression thoughtful. "Perhaps we have underestimated what courage and ingenuity can achieve," he said slowly. "The humans have provided a solution where we thought none existed, and Princess Lyra has spoken with wisdom and clarity. Perhaps it is time to reconsider the path we take." Varin's frown deepened, but even he could see the shift in the council. More voices joined in support of Lyra's perspective, arguing for careful consideration, for learning from the humans, and for embracing innovation while maintaining the essence of Xirin tradition. Lyra took a deep breath, her mind focused and steady. She realized that her journey, her courage, and the inspiration from the humans had brought her to this moment. She would speak again if necessary, but now she watched as the council began to deliberate, the decision no longer solely in her hands, but influenced by the clarity of action, reason, and courage she had demonstrated. Hours passed as the council debated, the humans observing quietly, offering advice only when asked. The room was tense, filled with anticipation, fear, hope, and determination. Finally, the head of the council rose, his expression solemn but respectful. "The council has reached a decision," he announced. "We recognize the value of the humans' methods, the courage they have inspired, and the clarity of Princess Lyra's words. Tradition is important, but it cannot prevent progress. Therefore, the council votes to allow Princess Lyra to choose her path, with the understanding that innovation, courage, and careful action will guide our civilization forward." A murmur of astonishment spread through the chamber. Lyra's heart leapt. She had expected resistance, perhaps even anger, but the council had listened. They had seen the value of courage and ingenuity, and they had chosen to act wisely. She turned to Captain Elias and Mara, her eyes shining with gratitude and determination. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have shown me what is possible." Elias smiled gently. "You did the hard part, Princess. You spoke, you acted, and you inspired others. We only showed the way." Mara nodded. Courage spreads, you have shown it today, and others will follow. Lyra's thoughts turned to the wedding, which had been the source of so much tension and expectation. She now had the power to decide her own future. She could honor tradition, or she could chart a new path, one guided by courage, ingenuity, and the freedom to choose. She had learned from the humans that action and bravery mattered more than obedience alone. In a quiet moment, Lyra addressed the council once more. I thank you for listening and for choosing to embrace what is possible. The humans have taught us that even when we face impossible challenges, courage and ingenuity can guide us to solutions. I will continue to work for the safety, growth, and future of our people, not as a pawn of tradition, but as someone who acts with purpose and clarity. The council members nodded, some with respect, some with renewed curiosity, and some with cautious approval. Lyra felt a sense of completion, of triumph, and of hope. The path ahead would not be easy, but she was no longer afraid. She had seen what humans could achieve, and she had embraced their spirit of courage and ingenuity within herself. Later, as the sun set and the city shimmered in shades of gold and silver, Lyra walked through the plaza with the humans. Citizens paused to look at her, sensing the change in her demeanor, the quiet strength that now radiated from her. The humans moved with calm confidence, yet they had become more than mere visitors. They were symbols of inspiration, of what was possible when courage and ingenuity meet action. I never thought I could feel this, Lyra admitted quietly. The world seems different now, fuller. Brighter, Elias nodded. That is because you have chosen to see it fully, Princess. Courage allows us to perceive possibilities that fear hides. Mara smiled. And now you carry that courage within yourself. The future is yours to shape. Lyra gazed up at the stars, twinkling above the city, feeling a deep sense of connection to something larger than herself. She realized that the humans had not only changed her perspective, they had changed her life. The wedding, the council, and the traditions were no longer chains, but challenges she could face with clarity and strength. She turned to the humans. Together we will help my people thrive. Not just through technology or solutions, but through courage, creativity, and the freedom to act wisely. You have shown me what is possible. Now I will act. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder gently. You are ready, Princess. You have always been ready. We only remind you of the courage already inside you. Lyra smiled, feeling the weight of expectation lift from her shoulders. For the first time, she felt free, not just to act, but to choose, to inspire, and to lead. The humans had brought their ingenuity, their courage, and their spirit. She had embraced it, and now her people could benefit from the same light. As night fell over the Zirin capital, the city shimmered in quiet harmony. The orbital relay glowed steadily, a symbol of human ingenuity and cooperation. Lyra stood at her balcony, watching the stars, feeling a sense of purpose and possibility she had never known. The humans had shown her the way, and she would walk it, guiding her people with courage, creativity, and wisdom. The stars twinkled above, silent witnesses to a princess who had embraced the courage to act, the wisdom to choose, and the spirit to inspire her people. Humanity had shown her the path, and she would no longer remain still. She was ready to shape her destiny, to lead her civilization, and to prove that courage, ingenuity, and the human spirit could light the way even in the darkest of times.